Hey, friends, welcome back to the table, a church plant journey. I'm joined with more friends today. Of course, I guess it's like my left when I'm looking at the screen, but maybe my right on the screen. I'm not sure, but my buddy Ryan, who you've seen quite often. And below me, if you
Hello.
can see him, brand new guy, we have our friend Joel. Joel Mesner is with us. Joel, give us just like a 10-second little bit of who you are. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you?
I'm a deep enigma wrapped in peanut butter. No, I'm a graphic designer. I'm part of the church plant core team with the table, and I'm a father of two awesome boys and a husband of an amazing woman. So yeah, that's the best. Oh, yeah, and I play music.
Tweet
Short
that.
and sweet.
There you go. Yeah, short and sweet. The playing music there, I like that little sprinkle because it's more than just that. You do a lot with that. We appreciate it. But yeah, Joel is with us. He's on our core team. He's done a lot for us already. We were actually just in a meeting right before we recorded this, asking him to do more things.
The
Thanks
pre-meeting
in
meeting.
advance.
Things
That's
I
right.
had already committed to, but let fall off my plate.
It happens, dude. It's 2021. This is just a continuation of last year. So without further ado, let's jump into it. How are you guys, Ryan? How's your week been? How's life? What's new? What's good?
My week's going good. I've been doing a lot of stuff at my day job, which is my current church. Getting stuff ready to go for our streaming. Finally getting some like cameras and stuff going out there. We're planning our Ash Wednesday. We're doing a digital this year. Should be interesting. We'll see how that goes. Oh yeah, and we're doing drive-through ashes because you got to have that part. And then just working on church planning, and I went and picked up Trevor from the shop the other day and brought him over, and we hung out. And
Oh, dude, that feels like a million years ago already. That was what, Tuesday?
yeah.
I'm still glad it wasn't your teeth that were going to cost $1,200.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, that's
so
good.
things are going good.
Joel. Good. Joel, what's up with you? How's life? What's new? I mean, everything's new for the listeners for you. But.
Everything's new for me. So it was a dark and stormy night in 1983. I have no idea the weather condition, and I was pretty sure I was born in the morning. But either way, things have been going well. The most prominent thing in my life right now is I'm doing the 75 hard challenge and kicking butt and taking names, even though the last 2 days my weight has gone up despite very, very good calorie netting. Either way, that's been taking up most of my time and doing that
camera.
along with my wife. It's the camera. Yeah, it's the camera that adds 10 pounds. Maybe if I put the camera down before stepping on the scale.
That and the horizontal stripes. So
okay. So I went with a fish shirt, and I thought that would help. Because fish, it's like healthier. No. So I work for a company called Taste of Ink. No, not sponsoring this. I think you have to say that in the podcast world, right? If you mention a company, then you have to say not sponsoring. Yeah. Anyways, they are not a tattoo shop. They are a design agency. I've worked from home actually the last 8 years. I've worked for this company 10 years. So when pandemic hit, it was same old for me as far as my workload. And then I also continue to do graphic design in the evening for people that have asked me to have already gotten it to them. Sorry, Pastor Ryan and Pastor Trevor.
Hey man, you've always gotten designs to me in enough time to get things done.
Yeah. Enough time. I like that statement. And you know what? I'm always proud of my work, and I stand behind my work.
I still love the Tempe shirt that you made. That was a knockoff of that one brand. I'm not going to say because I don't want to get sued.
That really amazing brand
that people pay $400 for.
Superior brand of
Superior. That's a great way of describing it. Yeah, that was still one of my favorite shirts that you did with us. Well, that's good. Like Joel had just mentioned, good thing it wasn't my teeth. I went to the dentist this week. I showed up, actually dropped my kid off at a preschool, and my car started to go, hot. And you're like, oh no, of course. So I had to go to the dentist. across the street was this auto shop. So I just dropped it off, said, take a look at it. Let me know what's up. I'm going to go to the dentist. So I had to walk a mile. My teeth were perfect. So that was the good news. The dentist is like, you've been flossing. I can tell your gums look good. No cavities. Take the goodie bag. So it was great. I walked the mile back and the guys are like,
I got a lollipop.
they didn't give me a lollipop. I feel like my old dentist used to, or maybe it was just my doctor who did that.
You just continue to see your pediatric dentist
This
well
is a
into your
fact.
20s.
This is very true. Actually, I see Rochelle's pediatric dentist now since I moved to Phoenix. She's been going to the same dentist for like the last decade, if not long, 15 years. But beside the point, I walked back to the auto shop. Turns out my water pump went bad. A bunch of tubes had rotted out, and that's where my main leak was coming from. They're also like, you should change your brakes and you should do that. And I said, I'll let my dad help me change my brakes. And I can do some of this at home. I cannot change the water pump. I said, do it. I'm just going to chill because this is my only vehicle and I don't live near. And they're like, all right, sounds good. We'll have it done today, which praise the Lord. They didn't take it for longer. I couldn't afford a rental car or any of that. So Ryan and I start texting and he's like, well, do you want me to come get you? I'm like, I'm going to be at this donut shop either all day or you can come get me from this donut shop. Either or doesn't bother me because donut shop. So he came and rescued me from Bosa
And
before
post-dentist.
post-dentist too. I did not buy a single donut. So I'm not on the 75 hard. No, but I'm feeling swole. So I'm feeling good. Other than that, $1,300 later. This is why you have an emergency savings fund. We saved well. We were smart. I didn't have to put it on a credit card. So by no means am I financially amazing, but we did have enough in the savings that we didn't have to ever worry about that being a real big
such
issue.
A blessing though to just hear $1,200 and not go, where's that coming from?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, a couple of years ago, that's what it would have been. The guys offered me. They're like, we have a new credit card you could take out. I'm like, I don't want another ding on my credit score. I'm doing well, sitting at like 770. I don't need that to be brought down. I have money in the bank. Oh man. But so
finances are important, Ryan. They're important and engaging.
It's like such a dad talk.
It is. Let's get into it then. So because this podcast, we like to talk about kind of the nitty gritty, the behind the scenes, behind the curtain of what it is to church plant. We want to talk about what's new, and what's new for us is, not the greatest news, right?
It wasn't horrible.
It wasn't horrible. It wasn't bad by any means, but
we had a meeting. Yeah, we had a meeting. We had a leadership meeting. We're trying to recruit our launch team, and we were really hoping to get some new people on Sunday night, and that didn't really happen. So
yeah,
I think I think you and I are partly to blame. I'm not going to throw anybody really under the bus, other than we probably just didn't communicate as well as we probably should have.
Yeah. There's definitely some stuff that we immediately learned, like, hey, Facebook Rooms is great when you already know what that is, but when it's a brand new feature, like Zoom, man. So we got a Zoom account. So now we're good. Like, we can host meetings on Zoom, which most people have learned in 2020. The other thing,
that's what that does.
That is what it does.
Yeah.
The other thing that we, again, just like to be honest and forthright with you guys, is we have basically an event planned every single Sunday until we launch this August, and we're canceling. Turns out this Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday.
What?
Apparently, people want to watch Tom Brady try to beat the Chiefs.
But wait, the Patriots aren't there. How is Tom Brady 2021?
Yeah, it's just another.
Yeah, when I did the calendar a couple months ago, I was like, oh, the 14th, that's Valentine's Day, not thinking that the Sunday before was Super Bowl Sunday. So I mean, we've had some other issues. Trevor, I don't want to go into the whole details because I think it was pretty boring for most people, but we're trying to plan our first outreach event next month. Just walk people through kind of some of the frustrations that we've been having. And a lot of it's just been because of COVID and things just outside of our control.
Yep. Oh, for sure. When there's a pandemic, it's makes sense that you don't have a really large event with bounce houses and hot dogs at the park. Actually, it's corn dogs. We were gonna do corn dogs, not hot dogs. They're
I feel like
bigger.
corn dogs are better because they're self-insulated. So
Exactly.
like that's like a hot dog with a mask.
Exactly. Okay, maybe we still should figure out how to do corn dogs healthily. But yeah, we've had to figure things out. We've had to adapt and change, which I think you need if you're looking into church planning, if this is something that you're excited about doing, know that there are going to be these moments that we're in right now where we're saying no, we're canceling, we're rearranging the schedule. We got to be flexible.
Yeah. I think one of my strengths is that I'm a person who makes a plan, planning on the plan, never going to plan. I like to have a plan in place, but I'm pretty adaptable. But at the same time, I feel like we're kind of just like every week is just we're changing something different. So
yeah, especially in the midst of this craziness. Yeah, I wish that we could just, sometimes I wish that we were at the launch point and that we were just okay, we're just doing it and it's church and you don't have to worry about canceling that because it's church and you just do it. But so that's the point. Things will get better. We're excited. We're moving on. We want to jump into tonight. So we brought Joel on. Feel free to share your screen now if you want to, bud. But we brought Joel
one more thing in.
Oh, he's adding things. So there's going to be more for everybody. But there's this awesome thing that every church needs to have.
Just so this
is true. For those who are listening.
Yeah, those who are listening to the podcast, we upload this to our YouTube page as well. So if we're talking, if during this conversation you hear us talking about like something where we're referring to something on a screen, go watch the YouTube. I don't know what else to say.
I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to not be 100% reliant on the screen. That said, I am a graphic designer for a visual audience.
Absolutely. Well, Joel, on top of being a worship leader, a core team member, and a graphic designer for his job, also designed our logo and a lot of our branding. And so tonight we want to kind of do a twofold conversation of logo and explaining that and why we chose what we did, coloring, etc., and brand, and the importance of brand. Because when in planting a church, maybe Joel will tell this story, I'm not sure, but we have these stories that we have where you just Google search church and then you grab the logo that looks good, and then your church, you put your name on Word next to that logo, and then this is your church of this denomination with the logo that you stole off Google.
Don't do that. It's illegal.
Yeah, don't do that. Do not do that. At the very least, so go ahead, search Google, find ideas. That's not a problem at all. That's not bad at all. But if you find something you like, make sure that copyright is open, or that you seek out who owns the copyright and contact them to pay them or ask them if you can use it. Sometimes it'll be free, but don't plan on it. Don't expect it. And then above and beyond that, just hire somebody to think of what you want your church plant to represent. Your church plant might have just the name of whatever city. It just might be Smithsville First Church of whatever. That's great. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That at least know where it's at.
Yeah.
And I know that nobody else. Yeah, and I know that nobody else from that denomination is already there. So I know that like that name, those types of names are great. They're traditional. You should still have something of a brand. But yeah, absolutely. I've done it. It's actually I'm just going to throw our church under the bus. I won't mention specific names, but Tempe, Church of the Nazarene. I've gone there my entire life. So I've always been aware of what its brand was, especially going into my teenage years, and then the youth group logo and all that. And it was very 90s, very 90s. I don't even have an example of that, but it was very 90s. Think of the 90s and then go more. but it came to a point where the church rebranded.
All right, I just pictured like an Oregon Trail, digital, like pixelated. Sorry.
No, that's late 80s.
Sorry, my bad.
Wrong time. Come on. No, so it got to a time where the church rebranded. I didn't really care for that, but I wasn't yet, like, I was a graphic designer, I was in college and all that, but they hadn't contacted me. Also, I got tons of work through there initially, starting off by doing the PowerPoint presentations every week. That's another great area where churches can invest some money if it's there. You know, don't waste money that could be going to helping specific people. But if you have the money there, invest money in your weekly PowerPoints, invest money in your brand. When Tempe finally got to the point where the logo that they had from like 2000 to 2014 just wasn't working. We also got a new pastor at the time. He wanted to refresh the image, and he searched church logo. And he literally picked the first one, and he didn't like the colors. So he asked me if I could change those and make it vector. And I did that. And, but I also asked him to make sure that he contacts the copyright holder and gets those copyrights in place. And he did that. So if you're a church, you need to be morally and ethically above the bar. Do not steal graphics. Do not. There are so many
photos.
Free resources. Photos are not free unless they specifically say free.
And
then make sure it says like really free. There's great sites like
Unsplash.
Pexels. Unsplash is another one. They have literally free, 100% free, very much so for churches, but honestly, they're just free. More free than TurboTax lying ads from a few years ago where it was only free for one specific thing. There's Unsplash and Pexels are two great sites that have tons of free resources. Vecteezy has a handful of free resources as well. But then you're going to get into other places like Adobe Stock and Stock Exchange and Shutterstock. Those are great ones where you can pay a little bit of money. And then you can seek out designers, design agencies, and hire them to design your brand. Always pay attention to what your church budget is.
Yeah.
Don't skimp on those costs, but at the same time, if you're a traditional church that has a building, pay that mortgage before you get a good logo. And if you're just a really small church and you know finances are going to be tight, don't pour it into that until that time is right.
Which is why I think with like church planning, like this is something that's easy to kind of invest in up front, right? Like,
yeah.
So much stuff is going to go off of your logo, your website, your any kind of physical handouts you do,
printed material, collateral,
any kind of signage you're going to use. Like so much stuff is based off that logo.
And that's completely true. And that's another great reason to not just pick it up off of Google's image search or even one of those stock resource sites. It's a great idea to if the Lord blesses you to have a graphic designer or somebody visually skilled to do that in your core team or affiliated with your core team, thank him day and night. And thank the Lord day and night, and then appreciate that person and make good use of that. If they don't, seek somebody out. So yeah, I'm going to start sharing my screen here real fast.
Sweet.
So there we go. These are a few of the logos I've done. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, it's the Tempe Church of the Nazarene. If you're, for whatever reason, don't want to go onto the YouTube site, anything like that, and view this podcast, or if you want to see it later, literally it's Tempe Church of the Nazarene. Go Google that term, or Google church logo. Either way, you'll find this basic setup. But I took the time to clean that up in Vector. I took the time to make the font layout nice and clean. I also presented them with various options. So here, what I'm showing on my screen, I took the colors that I think were originally like green and blue, very almost corporate looking. I gave them some life, made them blue and orange, more sky blue type of thing, and just nice font selection. These are actually all Nazarene churches because we're a close, tight-knit community.
The Holy Coat.
Yes, except not. But yes. So there's Eugene First Church of the Nazarene. That's up in Oregon. I had a friend that I went to youth group with all my life. He became a pastor up there, and he reached out to me. Theirs is a logo. So theirs is the finder marker when you do a search on Google. Or excuse me, search on Google Maps or Apple Maps. It's that little push pin tab.
I didn't know
and
you
they
did
wanted
that
to
one.
have that. Yeah, I did that one. I did indeed.
I didn't know that.
And they wanted to have that because their whole thing, I don't remember the specifics of it, but their whole thing was, you're on a path, you're on a journey, and we're here with you, and God's here with you. And so this is where you are, and this is the path you're going down. And I was like, that's really cool and super simple. And let's find a way to make that marker a little bit more unique than just the marker, and also not end up looking like a hot air balloon. So again, that's Eugene First, Church of the Nazarene. Google that one if you want to see it, or if you're watching,
And
obviously
it's
you can see
also an upside down raindrop. Which
it is an upside down raindrop. Yep.
So
it does. Oh, and sometimes it feels like it's raining upside down in Oregon. SF Naz, that's Spokane First, Washington, not too far from Eugene, far enough, but not too far. Still rains there. As a graphic designer, this is a time where I didn't like their thing that they finally picked. It's still good. I still stand behind it. If I didn't, it wouldn't have it up on my screen. I wouldn't be talking about it. But they wanted a more organic feel for their church. It's just like we just said, it rains in the Pacific Northwest. Things grow. Very common church theme to have crosses and to have plants. And there's nothing wrong with that. Too many people think, oh, it has to be a brand new thing. Are you a photographer? Then photography should probably be somehow represented in your logo. Are you a church? Then don't necessarily hide the fact that you're a church. That said, this Las Flores church, that one makes me so happy. So they came to me.
Not gonna lie, I'm really excited to hear this because I have no idea what that is.
So they came to me. They had a logo already. That was a hibiscus flower, or the bird of paradise flower. They're in Oceanside. This is actually a former pastor of Tempe. He's the one who asked me, who did the Search for Church logo.
Just throwing him under the bus.
I'm throwing him under the bus, but you know what? He's a great guy, and I think he redeems himself, especially with this Las Flores.
Well, you look at the growth here. You know, he was like this new senior pastor. He was just trying to figure it out. Now he's this he's in the game for a while. He's like, I'm calling the guy. I know what to do now. I'm calling the guy.
Exactly. He progressed. He saw the things, and it wasn't necessarily a mistake in the first one, but he saw things that could have been done more effectively. So they had this bird of paradise flower as their logo. Las Flores, in case you don't understand Spanish, that means the flower. Much like El Nino means the Nino. Anyways, they're also in the Oceanside area of California. They are on the beach. There are sand dunes, there are waves, and there are sunrises. And I was so stoked to blend that bird of paradise flower with a sunrise cresting over a hill with the ocean waves in the foreground. And it doesn't matter if you see that ever, or if you only see the bird of paradise, or vice versa. It's both those things. It speaks of a new day. It speaks of fresh dawnings. It's not inherently a church logo, but it says church in the name. They're not trying to hide anything. That's great. And yeah, I'm super proud of that logo. And
if you're listening right now, just pause for a moment, go Google Las Flores Church. It's in Oceanside. You gotta see what Joel's talking about. It's so good.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Always watch on our YouTube as well.
That, I thought it looked cool to begin with. When I had no idea what it was, I think it's just as art, it looks neat.
Yeah, it's just nicely balanced.
That's a technical term, neat.
Neat. Oh yeah, no, and I hold the neat in my wow report.
Yeah. So, but once you explained it, it's even better. Like, I feel like it's even better. Like, which I think is a good segue because our logo, Joel also did. Spoiler alert.
What?
And I love it for the exact same reason. I think it's simple, it's effective, and also I feel like it has more than one meaning. So
Yep.
if you want to bring
So
that
here we
up.
go. I got my screen prepped beforehand, so I'd have everything. So I'd first of all like to point out the amount of breathing room I have around this logo.
I know. Okay, I know. Okay.
Even this is just a little bit tight. In all honesty, like somewhere around here would be even better. Like that just gives it tons of breathing room. That's another just nuanced little thing. When you're doing designs, when you're doing things for your church, it's so tempting because it's like, oh, we got a budget and we got this one door hanger that's, whatever size. Let's get as much information on there. There we go. Let's get as much information on there and just pack it into that area and use up every square inch. And at the end of the day, that is less effective than giving things room to breathe, room to be where they need to be. You look more organized. You look more professional, but in the sense of responsible and established. You know what you're doing. So the table logo, I am super stoked on this logo. So stoked on this logo. This rivals Las Flores. It's not as cool because it's not as illustrative, but it's very much a layered logo. So if you're following this podcast, you can at least see that logo image mark on the icon for this podcast. So if you're just listening, you can still see it. Pick up your phone, look at that. If you're watching, then you got it here on the screen. Our logo is kind of looks like a stained glass window. It's got 4 circles that are surrounding a larger circle with a cross going between it all. And at first glance, it just is a nice, cool, kind of geometric, modern cross logo. Again, cross logos make sense for churches. What I really liked about it from the get-go when we had the name table was I wanted to show a table. I wanted to show a meeting time. And so if you'll stretch your imagination a little bit, not too much, hopefully, what this also is an overhead view of a table with 4 people coming to this table together. These 4 people are also all interconnected. That outer ring circles and joins each of them to the left and the right of each other. And then the cross in the center joins the ones across the table. This then further goes into the fact that our whole church is based off of a house church network. So that when we get to the point where we have, a house church in Trevor's neighborhood and a house church in Ryan's neighborhood and maybe one in my neighborhood and one in another neighborhood, and we've got 10, 20, and we're prolific, or even just that starting point of we have 3 to 5 churches. This is a statement of we are all one church. We're the table. We have individual spots where we're meeting, but we're all connected and we're all sharing an intentional purpose. I'm really stoked that I got to convey all of that through such a simple logo that you don't see all of that when you first look at it. It absolutely requires explanation. But once that explanation is there, it just really speaks to the heart of what we're about. I love that I can tell somebody that, and it shares the story of what our church plant is about.
Yeah, I love your passion, like right now, just explaining that. It's
Thank
like
you.
You're talking about a kid, your own kid. You got Cody and Logan, and then the table logo is the third.
And logos, designs don't become my children until the client approves, because sometimes I have to mess up the designs before the client approves them. So I don't want to mess up my children.
I get that. But like whenever I look at the logo, it's the table analogy that I'm seeing every time. That, the people at the table, the 4 interconnected. And I love how it's so multifaceted in this, idea of, we talked a while ago, I think one of our first couple episodes, about the name, the table, and why that was important. And now literally there's the visual representation of that. This interconnected, no one does it alone. No one's more important, further away or closer than the other, because you're all within this. And of course, yeah, there's only the 4 circles, but like you're saying, this bubble continues to grow and grow, and you could expand this thing. I'm just thinking, no, art, my brain is, I stretched the imagination too far. It's going.
Yeah. And then also, this is kind of the image too of being bound together by the cross.
Exactly.
The thing that draws us all in is the story of Jesus. And I love that kind of Celtic cross kind of look. It's not really in vogue, which kind of gives you that whole stained glass window kind of look, that kind of feel to it too. So I like that.
And then I made it all rounded and soft, so we're super approachable. Because I mean, we are going into neighborhoods and saying, "Come over to my house, eat food, and talk about Jesus," and that's a weird thing. We've all seen the memes of the hippo chasing the guy, saying, "Let me tell you about my Lord and Savior," and that can be what it feels like. So making this look more approachable, not as stoic and religiosity, but at the same time, we're not hiding that we're a church. We're not hiding that we're Christian. We're just saying, hey, that doesn't mean all the high church things that it's traditionally means, at least not in this case. Nothing wrong with high church, just to be clear.
Yeah. So I'm assuming, Joel, because you're just an all-star at designing logos, that this was this week you got here in your first try, and boom, we had it. The table was born because you had divine inspiration one night, right? That's how it went.
Yes. So let me pull this.
That's a segue.
What a segue. So here is a collection of things that I tried.
I love that you saved all this.
Oh, heck yeah. Because I might utilize something in another. I mean, obviously some of them are really close to what we ended up with, but I might utilize some of, a good graphic designer throws away nothing unless it is absolutely trash, which means about every 5 years you throw away things that are 5 years old. But short of that, so there's some, again, on screen, there's some versions of this logo. If you've just got the podcast, just the audio thing, you can still look at that icon. There was an earlier version of this that didn't have the crosses going through it, or where the 4 circles around it weren't filled in, or they had the line, that overall line going through them. One of the things I noticed right away was that made it look like a tambourine, which is super churchy, but not necessarily what we're trying to hit at.
Love me a good tambourine.
Love me a good tambourine. Almost as good as cowbell. I mean, again, there's various options here. We're exploring various colors. There's versions of it where it was a matter of, do I try to make a T coming out of the chairs? Some of these things I knew right away. It's that doesn't really speak to everything we need it to, but it was a matter of exploring it. When you're out there.
What's funny is looking at that older logo that you had put, that's like the table, you're trying to make a T out of it. It's green and gray on the screen.
Yeah.
I couldn't pinpoint it when we were discussing this initially, but now that I look at it, there's this Netflix show called Black Mirror.
What?
And that looks like the evil logo from Black Mirror.
Oh yeah.
You see it? It's like this weird, like the green one specifically. If you've seen Black Mirror, I think you can.
Yeah,
you can
it's
try
not,
to
like I definitely unintentionally.
It's not the same, but there's hints of it, and I just couldn't pinpoint why I didn't want it. And now that
I knew I didn't want it. Yeah, I knew I didn't want it for various reasons, but now that's a whole nother reason.
Guys, confession: I have not watched a single thing of Black Mirror.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh my gosh,
that's okay.
I know what it is. I just haven't gotten around to it.
So yeah, I mean, I did various explorations on this. There's
this is another church that actually I did their logo, Chandler Church of the Nazarene. If you're listening to this week that this podcast came out, you can go to their website and see their current logo that I've also got up on screen. I did this one 12 years ago. I've changed since then. I'm significantly more capable now. They came to me, they approved it, they liked it. It'd been working for them until recently. And so they came to me recently and they're looking at a few options. I didn't sign an NDA, and I know that this isn't going out to too broad of a area, but these are some
there are
options that are going out.
dozens of listeners.
Dozens, literally 3 people. And honestly, I mean, Denise or Melissa Anderson or Dee, who I'm speaking with, might be all 3 of them, or at least a quarter of that dozen. Anyways, this is an example of refreshing it. That's another thing to consider when you're in this church plant stage. Just because you've got a logo, especially when you're starting off, if you've got a logo and it's not sitting right with you, don't bury yourself too deep in it. Don't go out and get a church van with it, vinyl graphics of it pasted onto the side.
I think what's funny about the church van discussion now is like, they don't wrap the Honda. Well, you can wrap your Honda. It's okay. But like the church van discussion, like people aren't putting their logos on it anymore because when you speed on the freeway, people can call the number on the back.
Yeah. That's why my dad took the Jesus fish off of his Honda. But this is another quick example of one of my another client. This is actually for my employee Taste of Ink, but this is a logo that this guy's a real estate agent. It's important in every world to consider what your brand is, what it needs to say, and who it needs to say it to. Then Ryan, I know we had talked about a little bit about the other branding for the table. You had one of they had door hangers, right?
Yeah.
And Trevor, you have on one of the hoodies.
Represent.
Yeah, the brand overall, I mean, I love how versatile our design are, because it's almost twofold here. You have our text logo, the Table House Church Network, which is this, brings in this yellow theme, which across the board is on all of our stuff, which is super bright and attention grabbing. It's not the blue, the mid blue gray, like this kind of like fades in the background. It's not the golden arches or red, the red yellow Chick-fil-A. It's this, I mean, when you think about like church colors, right? We think of like crimson reds for the blood of Jesus,
maybe golds, but metallic,
some purples maybe, but a lot of like these monotone like gray, blue, browns. No, I'm not always for logos, but the yellow itself, like when you brought that out, I knew immediately like we could use other colors, but yellow's got to be our thing because it's so eye-catching.
Where did the yellow start? I think it started just when we were first.
Well, when I created that thing on Canva, we were doing like our pre-launch stuff, and it was like yellow and black, and it was just this like question mark, and I grabbed it because like yellow stuck out, and this is like we were asking people to join our core team, and I had like all of our mission, vision, values, and said none of these are set in stone. We want you to help. And then Joel kind of took that initial maybe inspiration. But if you're listening, Joel's brought up a ton of our branding here. And I'll say it so you don't need to reiterate it here, Joel. But I love how you did multiple font sizes within these brands. You look at, the Dinner for Six and the Come and Sees. You have come see, the big words that you want people to know.
Mm-hmm.
And the table is like kind of that next size, and then the House Church Network, the small one. Dinner 6 is like the big thing. Dinner for 6, it's what we want people to see, and then it gets smaller as we go. Launch team, it's like these. It's very clear. The first thing you see, especially when we're like putting these on Facebook for ads, and you're scrolling on your phone quickly, the first things that you subconsciously see those two big words, right? The come see, the Dinner 6, launch, and meeting. And this idea of, even if you're not going to sit there and consciously read what the post is about, you'll have seen it and you know exactly what this is about.
And
it's brilliant.
especially for social media, you need to be able to post with images, get more attention. Images that quickly convey the message. If you can do that purely through visuals with no words, great, do it. Like, seriously, do it.
You gotta stop the scroll. That's the
Yeah.
terminology. You have to. People are gonna just keep going by. You gotta give them something to stop that.
Exactly. And so if you do things that you've got just a couple words that pop out, then also the reason I made these consistent is it is easier for me than having to design a brand new thing every single time. No, but more importantly than that is for consistency. These are these visually balanced. Now that when somebody sees the come and see, and then in a few weeks they see dinner for 6, it's the same layout. So they know it's the same organization. They're going to know it's the table without even having to look at the logo. But it's different enough that they know it's a different event. And it's clearly indicating that. It also is great because I can hand these things off to Ryan or Trevor, and anybody that has basic understanding of Photoshop and can look at those layers, and they can say, okay, this is where I drop this. This is how I change this text. So making those things universal, that's not going to always work out. Sometimes you don't have tons of people that can make that final impact, but it's important to have your brand be as consistent as possible wherever it can be. And then, here's another, the door hanger, another thing on screen, brought in those yellows again, brought in similar characteristics from those other events. So if somebody picks up the door hanger because we've hung it on their door, and they go and check us out and they start following us on Facebook, then they're going to see one of these pop up in their feed, and that's going to help stop the scroll because it's going to remind their brain of all those things. These are all branding things. These are all marketing things. And so often it's so tempting to be like, that's not what the church should be about. And there is absolutely a balancing point. Yeah. There is 100% a balancing point. A church is a business in so much as it has finances that need to keep organized. That is where the business side of church ends. You can look at what businesses do to organize and facilitate things, but the core purpose of the church is to seek and save the lost, is to praise Jesus and pour our lives out for him and in turn into other people. So I utilize these things for churches in the sense of how is that best going to communicate? Whenever you find a graphic designer, there are great graphic designers out there that can do those things without being aware of what a church is. I do recommend that churches seek out graphic designers that at least understand and respect Christianity. Yeah. This isn't about, if you're a business and you're hiring a graphic designer, just look for somebody with a great portfolio that you jive with. That's fine. But just like a business, if you're a real estate agent, don't hire a graphic designer who doesn't do work that well represents real estate. Look for somebody who's done 10 other, 20 other, 100 other real estate logos. So this isn't a matter of, only get milk from a Christian cow type of stuff. This is a matter of hire a designer who inherently understands what a church is and what it means to get that church's presence out there, not just to fill the seats, but to pour into people's lives.
Well, I think to catch that vision, we're lucky that you're a part of our team, Joel, and you get this and you're in it with us. You're giving, you're sacrificing so much of your time and effort. But like, even in that fact of when the designer or the people who are joining you catch the vision, it begins to expand what they are passionate about, what they can provide, what they can do, what they're thinking about. When it's simply just, here, this is a task, go do it. And this isn't just for design, but just the reality of all of it is, there's so much that comes with when you're passionate about it, when you care enough about it to spend thought, time, meditation, and prayer on it. it expands what you can accomplish, what you can do. And I think that really shines not just in our logo. I mean, we heard your passion as you talked about the logo, but then in the following designs, the come and see door hanger, we hung the yellow side out because it was eye catching. And it's the first thing people saw. But then you were conscious to put black and white on the back to save us money, right? Like we didn't need to double the yellow front back because there's just too much. So we saved money on the back end because we were conscious enough. You were conscious enough to make it black and white, and it's beautiful because you still have the mosaic of the neighborhood in the behind section of the door hanger, but then all the information that is bold enough to read, that doesn't get lost. I mean, I think it just shows, especially not just in this design, but like in all of your designs, Joel, like you were saying, you understand what these churches are doing. And so in your church designs, like Las Flores, like even Tempe, where we took this logo we bought for $8 online,
but legally, ethically, we're good.
All good. But then you took it and you created this brand for Tempe, like the lettering. You look at the first two letters, Tempe Nazarene, they're lowercase letters and church is uppercase. I mean, I don't know if when people go back, maybe go look at that.
That was on purpose. Thank you for
exactly. It was on purpose. And it's like things that I see now as I'm kind of, I am not a graphic designer. I do most of my work on Canva, which is a free software I pay $1 a month for every so often. But
it's another great option for those churches where if the finances aren't there, go for it. Use those resources.
That's Canva actually. Yeah. While we're doing that, Canva has a nonprofit. So if you're a church and you can use their Canva Pro for free. It's not an easy process. I mean, I understand they kind of vet.
Yeah.
Pretty strictly, but if you can jump through all the hoops, I imagine it's
worth it.
Yeah. Joel, let's talk practically. Like, so say you're Joe and Susie, church planner, out somewhere. Let's say like Albuquerque. I don't know.
A good church planting place.
Yeah. And you want to find you listen to this, you've been convinced, hey, I want to hire a graphic designer. I want somebody who understands what it means for us to communicate our vision, to share what our passion is. What is the best way to like find a graphic designer? What should they expect to pay? What about like, do you need to have all those those designs up front? Like is there a retainer fee? What are some practical ways that people can think through this?
So the short answer to your question is yes. The longer answer is so first of all, look in, especially for church plants. I mean, God is all about church plants. That's what it's a go and make disciples of all nations. In all likelihood, there is some resource that you already are closely affiliated with, whether it's somebody you know or somebody else knows, or a shop just up the street from where you're planning on planting your church, or whatever the case is, that already is a graphic designer or knows a graphic designer or is in this world. There are also great resources out there. I am going to 100% slam spec work sites. I won't list any of them. But if you go to a site and if you're paying an amount of money that's just less than 100, to see an amount of designs that's just less than 100, just recognize that you're asking hundreds of people to do work and you're only going to pay one of them. And just think about, like, is that really the precedent you want to do? So don't look for the cheap resource. There are great people that are doing work on those sites, but they're all getting taken advantage of. Don't be part of that problem. I really, really discourage churches from being part of that system. There are great sites out there like Logo Pond, like Dribble, that have tons of graphic designers. You do a search on Instagram for hashtag logo designer,
you will find amazing designers. Contact them, reach out to them. Now, there are some of them that first of all, if they have their website listed, go to that and see what their contact process is. If they don't have that, then go ahead and hit them up and say, hey, we're looking for this. Could you provide us a quote? Don't say, how much do you cost? Just don't. You will be looking to spend, depending on whether you're wanting just a logo or a full brand identity. A full brand identity is when you have the logo, when you also have the shirts, when you have potentially a website, or at least, a homepage, when you have all those things. So you could be looking to pay a good designer who's just like, man, yeah, I want to be part of this church too. You might pay him $100, $200, not because he's worth way more than that, but because he's willing to essentially tithe his time and skill. He or she, I want to be totally clear on that. He or she, tons of amazing female designers that they might be willing to donate their time. But don't expect that. Do not guilt anybody into saying, well, it's for the church. You can let them know that your resources are tight, but don't. Jesus took some fish and some bread and fed 5,000 with leftover. You can find a way to pay a graphic designer what they're worth. So on the low end of a graphic designer that's getting paid what they're worth without any consideration for their time and tithing, you should not expect to pay less than $500 for a logo. I'll be dead honest. There's sometimes I do logos for cheaper than that. But if you want a good logo, a designer that's going to take care of you, don't expect to pay less than that. On the high end, you could easily be looking at $10,000 to $20,000 for that full branding experience, where in those cases, you might actually be paying a retainer where they're coming up with a logo, and then you've got them for the next 6 months to a year of, various, whatever that contract is going to detail out, saying, okay, these are the types of things. You might have a schedule of what's going to get done. You might be able to have an itemized list that gets updated. You might have to stick to that schedule, whatever the case may be. But honestly, you're looking from, short of the Lord blessing you with an amazing designer who is willing to tithe their time, looking between $500 and upwards of $20,000 for whatever you need for branding. $500 covers just a logo. That's, you might get a shirt design thrown in on top of that, maybe a business card design thrown in on top of that for another $50 to $100. A website, honestly, I don't even like pricing websites. I typically look at them as I would like an album, a musical album design, or a single like a trifold brochure, which I wouldn't expect to pay less than $800 to $2,000 for even a simple website. It takes time to get them coded right. If you want to use, there's great website services out there, Wix. Oh my gosh, the main one.
Squarespace is what we use.
Squarespace is fantastic. Squarespace is really good. There's tons of great templates out there. Those templates are priced again anywhere from $5 to $50.
Yeah.
Some of them are really easy to use, and some of them are really difficult, and you actually have to already be a professional to use them, and you don't know why you paid any money because they're not doing much for you. It's a world that it's important. I don't think that a church plant out there that needs a good brand, I don't believe that God hasn't already put somebody in the circles that church plant is associated with.
Yeah.
Ready to serve. And that doesn't come free. Again, I want to drive this home so hard. It doesn't come free. You're paying for things.
I wouldn't expect anything for free. I'd say,
no.
Plan that into
salvation. Salvation is free, but even then, that we know what it costs. What that cost.
As we used to say in the Army, in God we trust. Everybody else has to sign a hand receipt.
Yep.
There's a lot of resources, and if you ask enough people, you probably find somebody. But plan on paying them. I do photography. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but I don't know. Apparently, people don't realize that exposure won't pay your bills. Anybody is like, yeah, we'll get your name out there. That doesn't help me, pay for my equipment or help me
Yeah.
pay
Are
for
you
that.
telling the next guy that he did a great job and all you have to do is tell him you'll tell other people?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's expect to get what you pay for. Yeah. Try to find something that meets. I feel like the other thing we just really want to point out to everybody is find something that meets the mission and the vision that God's given you for your church, for His church that you're
Yeah.
starting. So
Talk to the whatever designer you hire, talk to them before you find a designer. Consider what you want your church message to be. Consider what you want. Consider, it's like, okay, your name is Smithville's First Church of whatever denomination. Great. So what is your passion? Why is your church plant there? Is it because that corner needs a church? Great. What does that mean? Or do you have a cool name like the table? Okay, what does that mean? What are you playing out of? Consider those things before you even hire a designer. A designer's job is not to know everything about you. A designer's job is to take the things about you and make them visually represented.
yeah, that's great.
I love it. Well, before we continue to talk for the next hour, because we totally could.
I could.
Well, there's just so much to it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you really nailed it out of the park. I know those numbers might sound scary, the 500 to 20 grand, but when you think about it, that $500 can be an investment for 20 years. You could, if you get a good enough logo, if you get a good enough design for your brand, your identity, that could be forever. It could be a one-time upfront purchase. Like Ryan was saying, it's something that I think church plants need to establish and take into consideration when we're doing this. I think Joel's right in the money. More than likely, there's somebody already within your circle or the next circle out that is a graphic designer that can help you. Pay them well, because then that will be, because it's twofold. You pay them well, it helps them, it shows your witness that you care to pay for product, but then that person is incentivized to do good work. When if somebody were to just simply come to you, Joel, and be like, hey, I can only pay you $120, I need a logo by next Thursday, can you do that for me? And you're like, yeah, sure, $120, you do it. And then next Thursday, they're like, this isn't what I wanted. It's like, this is what you're getting.
Yeah.
Like, you gave me a tight timeline and you gave me $120. This is what this is worth. And like Ryan said, you're going to, whatever you decide to pay for is understand you're going to get that type of quality. And I appreciate your honesty there, Joel, and just kind of the behind the scenes process of, not only do we have the coolest logo of all churches ever, well, maybe Las Flores is up there, but
Las Flores is up there, man.
It's up there. Well, we're different.
We're different. It's different. It's different reasons.
Yeah,
theirs doesn't have as much of a spiritual message.
Yeah, these are the things that just people don't think about when they're like, I want to start a church, or God's calling me to start a church. It's like, well, yeah.
What's your identity? What's your brand?
What is? You gotta.
How will people know you?
Yeah, you have to have.
And I mean, that's where.
Yeah.
If that 500 number scares you, just hire somebody to cleanly lay out the text, to show you like 10 good font options. Yeah, there are other fonts out there, but seriously, hire a designer.
Comic Sans.
Comic Sans is a great. I'm ending this call. Papyrus is another one. I'm ending this call. No, but hire a designer to show you 10 or so fonts nicely laid out for your church name and whatever tagline you might have, because you're gonna need a sign on your building. You're gonna have flyers you pass out
if you have a building.
You're gonna need a sign in your front yard.
There you go.
You're gonna need that church van wrapped eventually. There's gonna be times where you need to visually, your website, your Facebook page is going to have, you need to have a visual presence. So just look at investing. That might be $100 for a graphic designer to say, yeah, here's some font options. You're not looking for anything custom. You're just looking for it cleanly laid out.
Yeah. Love it. Well, before we can just move forward and go on it. Thank you, Joel, for all of your insight and wisdom there. If you guys have any questions, Jam, not Jelly, look him up.
At Gmail.
Oh, I was just saying your Instagram.
No.
But
Yeah,
Gmail.
Jam Not Jelly, but no, don't go to my Insta. That's mainly 75 and hard shirtless.
This is
selfies.
true. There's a lot of shirtless muscle pics right now.
I try to
Just
put
trying to
those
figure
out
out where to send people for your portfolio.
I try
Email
to
them at
put them-
jamnotjelly@gmail.com.
at jamnotjelly@gmail.com. I'm not taking tons of work right now because I'm part of this church plant thing. That's
You're busy.
taking a lot of time. But I'm happy to talk to anybody. I'm happy to answer questions. Yeah.
That's great.
Nice.
And if you're paying really well, then maybe I need a new guitar pedal and I might just be motivated to do it.
Amen. So speaking of guitar pedals, the next coming weeks we have our first Come and See event live. So Joel, on top of everything else that we've already just talked about, you also double as one of our worship leaders, right?
I guess so.
So what is your expectation for this Come and See live? The first one that we did, you had actually recorded some video with me earlier. We kind of did some worship stuff for actually a previous event. So we just doubled up. We double dipped there and used it. We crushed it, I thought. We did sing Come Thou Fount. It was great. But what's your expectations? We're going to do this live streamed event out of my living room, hang out, do some dinner beforehand, but then you're going to lead us in worship. What's your expectations? What are you thinking? What you feeling?
You've heard me say it 100 times before. Obviously, this is the first time on this podcast. I have same expectation as the old anecdote of the farmer who shows up at church one Sunday, about 5 minutes after church normally starts, and the pastor's locking up the doors. He's like, "What are you doing?" "Well, you're the only one that showed up. Thanks for showing up, but you're the only one that showed up." And he's like, "Listen, preacher man, even if only one cow shows up, I still feed him." My expectations are I'm going to bring my guitar. I'm going to have some songs picked out and prepared, and I'm going to have gone into it in a time of prayer and consideration for what the Lord wants to do. And whether that's one person signs on and sees it, or 500 sign on and see it, or whatever the case may be, it's about praising God more than it is about getting anybody. I hope whoever signs in sees authenticity. And that authenticity will only come if I'm genuinely worshiping. And then on top of that, I hope to just have tons of water but not have so much water that I'm at the point. Dude, quick side note, 75 hard. One of the challenges is to drink a gallon of water a day. This is a 24 ounce cup when you don't have water in it. And that's like 6 of these.
6 or 8, that's up there.
Just under 6 of these. That's a lot of water. I've been sitting here the last 20 minutes going, I need to pee.
Ryan, what about you? What's your expectations? What are you excited for? What are you worried about? Whatever for this Come and See live event.
I'm excited to kind of get together with our group and worship. I'm nervous because there's bound to be something technical that goes wrong. And the thing I've been thinking about the last couple of days is how are we going to make it not sound horrible? So we'll figure that out.
That's when you said speaking of guitar pedals, I was thinking the one thing I'm going to do is not bring guitar pedals. So it's just acoustic guitar. And that'll be the easiest thing to get it to sound nice.
Yeah, unless we can figure out a way to get the soundboard plugged into my computer, which we have, and run direct audio. I don't know. We can talk about that another time. I feel you. I'm excited. I think that, it'll be another good moment in time. Our last Come and See event was good with our, we just did a short snippet. I think it was I called it a hyper dub. I don't remember what I said, hyper something. I used the word hyper, and it basically just a really short condensed version of what house church will look like. And then a long form Q&A with Ryan and I. I'm excited to do the exact opposite and just do church and just let the Holy Spirit move, worship with you guys, hear a sermon, just be together. Our core team, we're going to be in person in this event. So if you're maybe thinking, well, there's a pandemic, you guys have been talking about you don't do things because of the pandemic. Our core team, we have actually met quite regularly together. Some of us are already vaccinated. Some of our core team works in the medical field and is vaccinated. We've taken precautions go
jealous.
hand to
I'm jealous.
stay safe. Yeah. But we just spent a weekend together in Prescott. So we all feel comfortable to do that. Again, that's why we're just doing a live stream with us so that we can keep the rest of you safe, but still provide the experience of, what house church is going to look like. And maybe there'll be a Q&A. Maybe there won't. I don't know. Maybe we'll just do it in chat.
We'll see.
We're still figuring it out. But I'm excited. We have one last announcement. This is exciting before we kind of wrap it up. I know we've been going for a little bit, but there is something new on the horizon. It's literally begun. Today was the announcement day. So February 4th, 2021. Was it last week it was announced officially, or is it today?
No, we teased it last week.
We teased it, you're right.
We said there's going to be some big news coming.
So big news is now.
Yeah.
So there is this awesome gentleman by the name of Josiah and another awesome gentleman by the name of Byron who created a podcast called the Millennial Pastor Podcast. They've been going strong for a few years now. Had some awesome guests between pastors, some nuns, duns, and some seasoned saints on their show. Both Ryan and I had the opportunity to go on there. Joel, did you get tapped to be on that? I don't remember.
I haven't. At least not in a method that contributes. I've currently got to figure out the whole. It's awesome. I've got all my calls silenced if they're not plugged into my phone, but it means I've missed a few calls.
I feel that.
But I really don't mind that so far.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't think I've been tapped. I've been tapped to be on your wife's podcast.
Yes. Yeah. And so speaking of, my wife hosts a podcast called The Pastor's Wife. She is the pastor's wife because she is one, but her experience is going through not only pastor spouses and their story. That really was her season 1, but the season 2 is really going into this next step of people in ministry that aren't pastors, people in ministry that are not this paid vocational role, but do ministry on the daily. So you have the Millennial Pastor Podcast, you have the Pastor's Wife, and now us, the Table, church planting journey.
And there's
initially
probably one or two more.
Eventually. Yes, exactly. There's the 3 of us, but there's potentially another 2 more. And the goal to continue to grow, we are joining and kind of becoming a network.
A church podcast network.
A church podcasting network. So kind of like the house church network, like we already do within our church planning model. We're joining with forces with a bunch of other podcasts and friends of ours. And we're joining the Millennial Pastor Podcast Network.
Yeah. So
if you guys want to be a part of that, go for it, Ryan. You talk to it because I don't know.
Yeah,
I do, but I don't.
There's a group on Facebook you can join. I think it's the Millennial Pastors Podcast or the Millennial Pastors.
Just changed it. It's the Millennial Pastor Podcast is the link.
Okay.
You type that in, but the new name is the Millennial Pastors Podcasting Network.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a mouthful.
So you can go in there, you can like them, you can join the group, subscribe to the shows. We're going to have a couple more. There's a couple more in the pipeline, I know of for sure. And I think we're all, at this point we're all Nazarene, so it should be fun. I'm excited for it because I think it's just another way to get not only our show out, but to, help hopefully boost our friends and literally Trevor's wife.
What's great though is that it's not just this like here I'm sharing my podcast thing, that it becomes this discussion platform, this ability to come and to kind of create this community of people that are all not necessarily like-minded. We're not creating an echo chamber here. In fact, there's people that have very differing opinions within this group, but just this ability that we can come together as an organization of millennial pastors, millennial ministers, people that might consider themselves millennials, whether or not they are Gen Z, Gen X, Boomer. You can join us. It's fine. You don't have to be a millennial, but it's just this network of people
to be a millennial at heart.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're passionate about what they're sharing in their podcast. And it's a great platform to help come together and to show we can all do all this hard work and try to build our own forts as high as we could, or we could all join forces and we can do that together rather than trying to build a bunch of different ones. But guys, that's our news. We're excited. I will link that Facebook group in the link down below. One thing I was thinking of, Joel, when we were going through this, you mentioned a few websites for like logos and designs and images. Can you email me those or text me those sometime? And I will also put those in the description per the advice of Joel. So if you're listening to this for the first time, or you're a church planner, or maybe you're an established church looking to do a different logo, Joel's got some wisdom. You can check out those links below as well. I think we're done. I think we're wrapping it up. We've been on it for a bit. Joel?
This might be our longest one. But I think it's good.
And that's okay.
I don't know if that's my fault.
No, it was, there was some very important stuff that we needed to discuss in that, because at the end of the day, this podcast is not just a rant blog for Ryan and I to express our church planning great, successes and failures, but it's this resource that we want to utilize for you to help your church planning, or even if you're, like I said, an established church looking to do something new, that this can be a resource for you. Yeah. As always, you can follow us, The Table Naz, on all of our social media accounts. That's at The Table Naz. Instagram, It's just at thetable.naz. It should just pull up if you type it in correctly. You can find us at our website at thetablenaz.church. You can watch this if you go to thetablenaz.church/YouTube. That'll take you directly to our YouTube page, so you can watch this episode and kind of see some of those logos. Before we wrap it up and call it quits, we've been doing this the last couple of weeks. I just like the trend. If we can pray for you, message us, use the Anchor app, DM us, email us, get connected there so we can pray for you. But before we go, I'll start with you, Joel. Well, how can we be praying for you? What can we pray for?
Honestly, parenting wisdom. Like, nothing specifically is tough and all that. It's just aside from, having a 10-year-old and a 9-year-old, just the wisdom to do the right thing. And then time management. Those are probably my two biggest prayers. And then I start seeing even more gains from the 75 hard, but that's a total vanity personal thing.
Amen. Love it. Ryan, how can we be praying for you? As always, we are always praying for you, Megan and the kids, and Dan. Again, if you guys don't know about that, go back to our previous episodes. But that is always on our prayers.
Yeah. I think for me, the big thing right now is just starting to get stressed out about finding a job. So I don't know if I mentioned that last week. I probably did, but it's one of those things it's getting more real the further along we get, and I haven't found anything yet. So, I want to be able to pay our bills.
I feel that. So. Trust me, I'm at the point now. It's like, it'll happen when it happens. So like, my stress is not as there like it was a couple weeks ago, but now that you said it, my stress is back right now in this moment. I feel that. No, yeah, job stuff, things are going well, but there's nothing solid just yet. I'm trying to think. I think the big thing for me to pray for is that, I can really set intentional time every day, and for whatever, specifically in that right now is for sermon prep for the year coming, but just that I am intentional in setting some time away. Today, I wasn't feeling the greatest, and then my computer was having all of these issues. So I spent like 4 or 5 hours trying to troubleshoot this issue that I still haven't figured out. Thank the Lord it's working right now to record this, but just wasted time today. Like, I feel like the whole day is just gone. So just from here on out, that I have an intentional set apart time that I can step away from whatever I'm doing and get some stuff done and do what the Lord's calling me to do. You were muted, Ryan. I didn't hear your response.
I just said, yeah, definitely. No, I'm in the same boat. I feel like I did have a really productive day, but even then it's like, I feel like I just get distracted so many times thinking about the job. So, yeah.
Well, thank you again, Joel, for joining us. Ryan, it's been good to talk to you and see you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Friends, we're going to be little teaser. Again, we're just doing a little bit more of that little Salt Bay on you. Ryan and I are going to be on the Millennial Pastor podcast here coming up soon. So like we talked about earlier, go join and jump on that network so that you can hang out with us and be a part of it. But then you guys can hear us be interviewed a little bit and talk back and forth with Byron in the coming weeks. Not sure exactly when that's going to air, but we're excited about it. We love you. We're thankful for you. We'll talk to you soon. Until then, I'm Trevor.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Joel.
There we go. There we go. I was waiting for that. We'll talk to you guys soon.
God bless.